chasing the easy life. We're chasing the easy life. We're chasing the easy life.
What's up, guys? So what I want to talk about today is something that a lot of different individuals, entrepreneur, or organizations deal with from time to time is how do you innovate? Where do new ideas come from? So from my experience, ideas come from a number of different places. Number one is ideas that grow organically through your organization. So these could be technology that is currently being deployed in one setting, in one location. And I can go over this on a more strategic level with the usage of something called an Ansoff matrix, which it's more complicated. I'll show you guys what I mean in another video. But just for the sake of simplicity, it could be from existing platforms that you're deploying into a new market or new customer segment. So that could be an innovative use of an existing technology or product or whatever. And then obviously there's de novo types of ideas and concepts that would need to be thoroughly researched, investigated, and then doing proof of concept, prototyping, pilot launches, or soft launches, and then general availability and the actual hard launch, right? And I'll go through all of this. Actually, I have in another video, or I will make one shortly on this topic. But it's very complex, and each of those processes can be broken down even further. But for the sake of this video, we'll keep it simple at high level. And then the other way to get ideas are from customer feedback. So especially the super user groups, the people who love your product, use it on a daily level and whatnot. So in this regard, and again, everything just branches out into so many different additional videos. But it's important too to understand which user segment you would need to do your research on, right? So it's kind of counterintuitive in the sense that these ideas come from users, user feedback and whatnot. But as you may know, a majority of your users would be sort of like on a bell curve, fall in the middle, right? The medium, not too heavy, but also not the infrequent user. So when you're doing studies, the question oftentimes comes as a form of which segment should I do the research on? The one that brings me in most of the money, or the super user, or the people who don't use it? So it depends on what you're trying to accomplish, right? So if you are trying to innovate, super users are the way to go. And the reason for this is because those people oftentimes are either professionals who use your product or solution or service to solve a problem, and they have heavy demand and a lot of different needs. So from their feedback, you can have product enhancements, new product concepts, and so forth. The infrequent users is important because then they can also provide feedback, but on the opposite side of the spectrum. Perhaps your product is very difficult to use, and so they don't use it as much. Or perhaps they mistaken the process or the functionality of your solution. Or they have or maybe, folks in your market, your competitive peers and yourself have a wrong impression of why people would use this. And from their experiences, you can learn how to improve your product as well. The medium users, not so much, but they're really good for validation once you get the concept, get the product solution going. And you need validation from those guys at a later stage. So that's another way, is through customer interaction, market feedback, and so forth. A third way would be through keeping up with a lot of your industry's key opinion leaders, and by going to conferences. One of the good things, and and one of the good things of going to conferences is when you go, you get to meet a lot of vendors that are either upstream or downstream of yourself, and there are a lot of startups. So one trick I typically use is just scan through the startups to see what sort of, create like a mental heat map of what type of technology or ideas are quote unquote hot, right? And then thoroughly research and vet it to see if this is just a fad or if this is going to be a trend, and that's not going to go away. This is the wave of the future, so to speak. And then talking to them and whatnot, and then also talking to vendors as well, right? Because they can tell you what some of their customers are doing, and where they're headed with their needs as well. This gives you an idea of what the competitors are doing. And of course, sitting in on a lot of those lectures, and then reading trade publications, whatever industry you may be in. So that's another way to come up with new ideas and vet them. And then another way to innovate and get new ideas is through competitive tracking across your competitor's website. Oftentimes, depending on the industry, they would have a pipeline. So website, earnings call, and their conferences. So oftentimes they would participate in various very specific conferences that they themselves hold, like especially if they're big enough, right? So if you are able to get in or get other people into those conferences and get material out of it, it would be a great way to see where are everyone placing their bets, and understand what the future may look like, and that can inform your own product development and creating new concepts, new ideas, and so forth. So to recap, basically, number one is ideas can come from internally, and they could be de novo ideas, just brand new ideas, or they could be a new use case for existing ideas or technologies that you currently have with some modifications. The second way is to get ideas from customer feedback, and understanding the various use cases that they may have, especially from the super users, and then also the people who don't use it as much, the laggards, if you will. Understanding these two customer segments is great, and then being able to validate it with your broader broader, I don't want to use the term average, but just the folks that fit into the medium part of the bell curve. So that's another way. And then the third way is to be cognizant of what the market is doing, and a lot of ways to do that is through monitoring trade journals, keeping up with that, going to trade conferences, sitting on lectures, meeting with vendors, and keeping an eye out on the startup within your industry. Oftentimes in different conferences, I don't know how different industry conferences are, but the ones that I go to, they often have a section for new vendors or new startups, and I really like to pay attention to those areas because it gives me a good sense of what types of technology, where the focus is, and where people are placing their money. Okay. And then lastly is just simple, I don't want to say simple, but your traditional competitive tracking. Going to company website, looking at the earnings report of their public company, looking at the conferences that they themselves sponsor and hold. Oftentimes, if the company is big enough, they have their own product launch conference and whatnot. And then studying their pipeline, if that's available on the web, and also any type of presentations that they may make, or press releases and so forth, and keeping track of that. So hopefully this is helpful for some of you folks who are wondering how to get new ideas, and where are the different ways to acquire that. So but this is just the start. It's the tip of the iceberg, and there's a lot more work to be done once you do that. So all right, well, let me know what you guys think, if it's useful or not, and as I said, we'll go into more details about how to flesh out these ideas in future videos. All right, peace out.